feel very urged to do something that I'm very passionate about.
A thriving, contributing young adult to society. I think that's the outcome that we are after.
I feel like my generation thinks of success and thriving at quite a surface level.
An entire generation of young people that get labelled the strawberry generation. They're going to have to make a life for themselves in a harsh and uncertain world. There are key fundamentals that we want to put in place in a person's life so that they can withstand hardship, because it builds grit, it builds resilience, it builds resourcefulness. And these are fundamental yet
And universal.
If that so-called short-term well-being of the young person is not the ultimate goal that we're after, what should be the ultimate goal? Welcome to Halopod-cast, where we explore the transformative power of leadership through Halogen's attributes framework. We are your hosts, Sean and Ella. And in this series, The Inner and Outer Leader, we'll dive into key leadership qualities like emotional intelligence, resilience, and effective communication, and how they can shape the leaders of tomorrow.
Whether you're an educator, a parent, a mentor, or someone who guides the next generation, this podcast is here to equip you with practical insights and actionable tools to support young people as they navigate the world and become leaders they're meant to be.
In each episode, we'll break down Halogen's attributes framework, providing you with strategies to nurture these qualities in young people. If you're ready to learn, grow, and make an impact, let's dive in. So, Ella, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Ella. I'm currently a J1 student at VJC, and I was a former National Young Leaders Fellow at Cohort 2. So I've been with Halogen for about 2 years, and I've been involved in a lot of their programs, like overseeing volunteers and kind of like just being here. And I love the vibe here. What about you, Sean?
Well, I'm an old face of Halogen. I was a former staff. I was on staff for 12 years. And now I'm very happy to be back to host this podcast together with the next generation. Yeah.
New and old faces.
Yeah, old
of
faces.
Halogen.
Yeah. Now, this podcast is primarily about leadership development and attributes. But before we dive into some of these technicalities, why don't you share with us a little bit about your personal leadership journey?
Okay, that's a very good question. I feel like my inner leadership journey hasn't gone very far because I'm only so old, right? But basically, my leadership journey has kind of like had a lot of ups and downs. I've started thinking that leadership is kind of like influencing people to do good and kind of kind of like having trust between you and your teammates. But actually back then when I was younger, I kind of thought that leadership was kind of the loudest person or some sort of commander. So when I was younger, I was quite bossy, and a lot of people complained that I was quite bossy.
When you were younger, so meaning now you're not lah.
I hope so. Whoever tells me I'm bossy, I'm sure I'll work on it. But basically when I was younger, I was kind of bossy, and I thought that leadership was kind of domination. But actually now that I've been through a lot of these stuff like community service opportunities, working with volunteers, and just meeting different people, I've kind of come to learn that leadership is really about building yourself and kind of influencing people to build on themselves as well.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
Well, I first came to awareness, or my teacher first brought to awareness my own leadership. And this was a slightly negative example, right? When I was 12 years old, right? So this was during a mathematics lesson, primary 6, right? And there's this chapte, or more correctly, the chapte that was under my table. It was something that we played with during recess, right? We kick it around, and so obviously I was feeling a little bit bored of whatever was being taught in class, and then I signaled to my friend on my left and on my right, like, hey, we go toilet, kick around, kill some boredom, right? And this guy on my left was a prefect, and then this guy on my right is just one of my good friends. And we had this strategy where I slip out of the toilet to the toilet, then the next one follows, and then the third one follows. And yeah, we were in the toilet for slightly longer than necessary, and of course, we were eventually caught. But I think that was when the teacher caught, and then had this interrogation, right? Who's the ring leader? And fingers pointed at me. And it's like, okay. And all the drama and public caning aside, the teacher actually pulled me aside and talked to me about how I was not being a very good influence on the people around me, right? And that I should be aware that people follow me, right? of course, in that instance, was not for a very good thing, lah, right? And she encouraged me to like, why don't you get people to follow you for better reasons instead? Yeah. So that was when I first came to awareness of leadership. I wasn't a student leader in primary school, and for much of secondary school, it wasn't something that I, like aspired to or threw myself out there. What about you? Was leadership something that you put yourself up for?
I kind of feel like I try to put myself in positions of leadership. I'm the type of person that's very kiasu. I feel very urged to do something that I'm very passionate about. If, for example, I feel very strongly about a certain cause, I would do my best to champion it, and I want to be at the forefront of doing my best for it, right? So I guess in your case, it's like you led in a very informal capacity, right? But I guess in my leadership journey, I had more formal appointments. So I took up a few leadership positions here and there, and I've kind of worked with enough people to get a better sense of the type of leader I am. But I guess like when I was younger, this wasn't very clear. When you were P6, you were playing Chapte. When I was P6, I was being a bossy leader, as we just mentioned. Yeah. So I guess times have changed.
Yeah, you mentioned something about informal leadership, and I think the reality, in most organized structures is there are limited roles for formal leadership, and most of us end up leading in a slightly more informal way. I remember I was never the kind of person that put myself up for formal leadership, right? And it was something that people always asked me to consider. They call out to me and say, "Hey, Sean, would you want to take this up?" So interesting story was that when I was a JC student, we were pioneering a new sports CCA, all right? And so this was in the second year of the CCA. So we had one batch of seniors that did pioneering work. So of course, when they handed over to us, right, there was a captain and a vice captain. And for whatever reasons, right, somewhere midway through the term of the CCA, right, both the captain and the vice captain stepped down from their position, and they left the CCA completely. And so the seniors, who felt like they had a stake in the CCA was like, "Hey, Sean, would you consider taking this up so that the CCA can continue running?" And the teacher also spoke with me and like, "Okay, is this something that you want to consider taking up?" So long story short, me and my friend became captain. I was the vice captain, and that was my first real foray into formal leadership.
I guess it's kind of interesting that we reflect two groups of people. When you were in your youth, you were kind of given opportunities to excel and be a leader, right? And then I'm the type of person to want to step up. So I guess it's like two different ways of how people can grow to shape themselves to be leaders. I guess like by people observing you and giving you the chance to lead, and by you taking the onus upon yourself to put yourself in leadership positions.
Yeah, and I think that's how it happens most of the time, right? You notice someone that exhibits some potential for leadership. And then, teachers who are the ones in authority, they will ask them and of course there are those who put their names out there and into the Harry Potter sorting and hope that they get caught into the echelons of leadership. Yeah.
Echelons. Yeah. I feel like it's important though, like what you mentioned, like for adults or just people who work with youth to kind of see potential and recognize that in them. I don't know, when you were in JC, do you feel like very confident about yourself that, I could take up this role? Or
I think I responded to it more of there is a need. Nobody's filling that need.
Wow. And
since I have been asked to fill that need, I took it up. So you can say I answered the call to leadership.
Aura. Okay, sorry, so Gen Z slang, aura,
I know,
plus
right?
aura points.
I know, right? Had it since young.
I guess it's important for us to kind of build in inner leadership styles and inner leadership qualities. And from what we just said, I guess you kind of had that confidence in yourself to like do it, or like to build yourself up as a leader. But what I'm seeing right now in my generation is that I feel like we don't have enough confidence to kind of put ourselves out there and like be vulnerable or try to face new challenges.
Why do you think that is so?
I feel like my generation thinks of success and thriving at quite a surface level. So we kind of go through schools and we think that, for example, studying the best, getting the top grades, getting the most CCAs will get us the most accomplishments or will get us to what we think striving and surviving looks like, right? But ultimately, I feel like because we see only tangible aspects of success, we don't really build in kind of our inner attributes and qualities, like important things that, I don't know, build us to have a more resilient outcome in the future. What do you think?
Well, I attribute most of what you just described to social media, right? There's a lot of portrayal of one side of what success looks like. We don't really see the hidden sides we don't really see the hidden struggles, the difficulties that we all journey through. And some of these are actually pretty common, right? Things like self-doubt, things like, not having the solution to difficult, complex problems that you're facing in life. So some of these things are common struggles, but sometimes we just see the end outcome, and that's what's glamorous and that's what's worth shouting about. Yeah.
I feel like the whole social media and how entwined it is with my generation, I guess it kind of feels like my generation is always pursuing instant gratification. I guess we don't really have like the patience or the resilience to kind of see things through. Or when we have goals, we only see how it benefits us in the short term. And I guess it's really tough for youth of today to kind of have that confidence and have that esteem and see, I guess, the long route.
Yeah, you highlighted something really, really poignant, right, salient over there, which is resilience, patience. These things are what I would call invisible traits. You look at someone in the MRT train, you're not going to use the word, oh, that guy is really patient to describe him, right? That's such a weird way because it's not something that is obvious.
Yes.
Or you're going to say, well, he's taking the train, he's really resilient. Like, how bad is our transport system that you need to be resilient to take the train, right?
That's true.
So these are invisible traits. We don't really see them. And my concern is because these are invisible, people don't pay attention to them, but they're actually really important for us to be able to accomplish what we want in life. Yeah.
I guess you've interacted with a lot of youth over your time at Halogen, and you've built up a sort of framework, is it? Attributes-based framework on basically the type of skills that youth need to succeed and thrive in the future. So when you're developing that, how do you basically like group up the attributes, or how do you come up with these other traits that we think youth need?
Well, 12 years in Halogen, 15 years in youth development. I would say along the way, what I thought was important has evolved. So in my earlier years, I took a very youth-centric, put the young person at the center of everything we do, kind of an approach, right? Whatever seems good for it, for the young person. And then there was this book that I read that really shaped how I think about young people and how we are building young people for the future, right? I remember the author's name, Jonathan Haidt, and he talked about how good intention parenting and teaching practices, right? Good intention, right? So like keep things safe for the kids. The kids should not feel negative emotions when they're at home or when they're in school. They shouldn't go through too much hardships. Playgrounds should be safe, that kind of thing. But then the evidence from that approach shows that when these kids grow up, they don't have resilience. They don't have the skill sets, the attributes, the mindsets to be able to tackle difficult, challenging problems in life. All right, and that's how we get an entire generation of young people that get labeled the strawberry generation.
I think that's my generation. We are the strawberry
it was
generation.
used for my generation as well, right? So every generation has their labels. Yeah. So that was my turning point, right? That I realized good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes. So that sent me on a journey of questioning actually what are the really important outcomes, right? A child not feeling negative emotions is not an outcome. Or maybe that's not the ultimate outcome that we want to go after, right? A thriving, contributing young adult to society, I think that's the outcome that we are after. We don't want young people to grow up into adults who can't contribute, they are destructive, they don't thrive, they don't succeed, they get upset with themselves, and then people get upset with them, and then it's a recipe for a disastrous society lah. So then I shifted my starting point, right? If that so-called short-term well-being of the young person is not the ultimate goal that we're after, what should be the ultimate goal? All right, a thriving society, not the kind that we have seen in certain pockets of Western societies that are a bit destructive, a bit dysfunctional. They cannot have what I call constructive disagreement or debate. All right. So my starting point shifted to what kind of world, what kind of society do we want to build? And if that's the kind of society that we want to build, what kind of people do we need to build so that we can have that kind of a society? Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that I guess people who work with you have a very important role in that youth life in building these attributes, right? And it kind of calls back to a quote I read about. It's like basically a sailor doesn't learn by sailing in smooth waters, right? I guess it's kind of like if a young person doesn't see any challenge or they themselves don't feel the willingness to take up these challenges, they kind of think the easy way out is always present. And that may not be the case for success and thriving.
Yeah, I would say a sailor first learns how to sail in smooth waters. But I would quote another quote, right? A ship in harbour is safe, but that is not what ships are built for.
Tough.
Right? And the parallel I would draw is, a child in the confines of a home is going to be safe, or maybe in the confines of a school is going to be safe. But eventually, they are going to leave their homes, they are going to leave the school system, they are going to have to make a life for themselves in a harsh and uncertain world, right? They are going to leave the harbour, and they need to have the muscle, the skills, the experience, the competence to be able to thrive outside of that harbour, the safe confines of home and school. And I think we need to pay a bit more attention to how we prepare them for that kind of reality.
So I guess it's a lot about building inner skills, like inner leadership. In that case, I guess how would it translate to outer leadership, or like what are outer attributes of the attribute framework?
Yeah, so this attributes framework, we kind of have a total of 47 attributes, right? We took
47.
We took we initially had more, right? But we took a very academic approach, right? About what works, what are attributes that actually help young people thrive, and how do we go about building these attributes, right? So we had a long list, 50 over. After a few iterations, we are down to 47, and then we kind of categorize them into 9 categories, 9 domains, right? 3 of them form the inner domain.
Or like inner leadership.
Okay. Right. And these are the more invisible parts, right? So something like you mentioned, like patience, resilience, grit, and then there's the external one. So these are the ones that you see in action when people lead, right? So like project management skills, effective communication, right? Public speaking. So those are the more external, the outer leadership attributes. And I would say both are important in order to thrive. Yeah.
Was there ever a case where it's like, have you ever seen a person with inner and not outer but no inner attributes? Like, why are they so important to interlink or for youth to have? Well,
I mean, the example that from history that most of us will know would be Adolf Hitler, right? By measures of, was he able to mobilize people to follow him for his cause, right? He was charismatic. He could influence his entire nation towards the cause, right? But from a moral standpoint, right, and this really the inner part, right? We know now that there's something really problematic with it, and even if you take the moral part away, towards the end of his military leadership, right, a lot of cracks were showing where he was insecure, he didn't listen to his military advisors and all that, and that ultimately led to the downfall of the German military. Yeah.
I guess in that way, inner and outer, you need to know yourself outside in, inside out, right? For you to, I guess, be a successful leader. In that case, like a successful person that, I guess, manages yourself, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a hidden struggle that we all go through, right? I remember, as guys, we serve national service, right? And
can't relate.
And I mean, if you have friends who have been there, done that, you'll hear stories of what life is like in the SAF. I was in the SAF. It's a rough place, vulgar place. You learn foul language in more languages that you knew existed.
That's multiculturalism.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. And I was a platoon sergeant, right? And of course, I had to determine for myself what kind of a leader am I. Even though my environment can be rough and tough and vulgar. Now I don't know how things are like now, right? My NS was donkey years ago, but back then, it was rough and tough, and I decided, internally, I will not be a leader that uses vulgarities. I should get a certificate of outstanding achievement for that. And I decided that, I should not unnecessarily lose my temper. It's even though the typical style of leading in uniformed organizations is rank is power. Yeah.
It's very top down. I think going back to what we were just talking about on the importance of having inner and outer and kind of bridging those two leadership attributes, right? I guess in your youth and my youth, our primary cases from just now, I feel like we both had a lot of outer, for example, influencing people, or in my case, telling people what to do, right? But we didn't have the inner traits, and I guess we couldn't bridge those. And I guess in the historical case, it breeds destruction for yourself as a leader and for the teammates under you. Because I guess you would be an insecure leader and your people wouldn't really trust you, right? If they knew that their leader wasn't a very good person or had like a good compass to lead them. Then in that case, I guess like in the SAF or the military, it's also very top down, right? Do you feel like, okay, maybe I feel like this. It's kind of like, that's the leadership that I currently see in schools. It's very like top down. You very much have your exco and then it's very formal leadership. I feel like now schools are trying to have more opportunities for maybe class-based leadership or for people outside of the leadership system like boards and all that to have different roles and different parts that they play in the school community, right? But I guess what I'm very much seeing is that youth without opportunities or youth without formal positions, they don't step up or they don't take up such roles, or maybe just they just don't see the outer leadership part.
I mean, the practical reality of running any organization is that there are limited formal positions of leadership, and it's not to say that this approach to leadership opportunities is bad, right? It serves a practical function. It gets things done. Projects can run, events can run, right? You need people in charge of some of these things, and those people who are in those formal positions of leadership, they tend to be the ones that end up working on the project, solving the problems, trying to communicate, right? So they get more of those opportunities. And you're right to say that. How can we give more of such developmental opportunities to those who don't always rise up to those formal positions of leadership, right? And I go back to my earlier story, right, of me being a bad leader, so-called, right? That I think I was thankful that I had a teacher that could call it out and say, yes, that was an informal and even a negative leadership moment, but a leadership moment nonetheless, right? And from there, you bring awareness to some of this in my case, the moral aspect of how I'm leading others. Yeah.
I guess I can recall like a case in my life that's kind of similar to yours, where it wasn't a teacher that kind of recognized it in me, but when I was serving in a prefectorial board back when I was in secondary school, I guess a lot of my job as a leader wasn't just to do events, right? Or wasn't just to handle deployments, but it was really to, I guess, give opportunities to people without formal leadership positions or people without titles. Like even when I look at training my counselors, right, I have to really kind of like see what they need or like what I can help them with. Is it somebody with like a lack of confidence? Can I put them in, for example, an emceeing role, just like throw them out of their comfort zone to kind of see where their heads at. It's like, for example, give them that challenge when we were talking about resilience. So that they can build up these soft skills and have the opportunities to showcase outer leadership as well.
Well, your juniors are very blessed to have someone that thinks about them so intentionally and from a developmental approach. I think the reality is most of us just flow with the needs, the requirements, the circumstances of the time. And if you're fortunate enough, we have someone that makes those, life lessons, moral lessons, skill set lessons obvious for us, right? Otherwise, it's pretty much left for us to figure things out on our own. And I think, based on our academic research on the attributes framework, intentionality is actually a very important part of how a young person ends up acquiring these attributes, right? We have to call it out when it happens. We have to bring awareness to it when it is displayed or deficient in an individual. Yeah.
It's really hard to build up inner attributes, but if somebody lets you know, for example, you're doing well in something, like they not really praise, but for example, in JC, you were given the opportunity to take up leadership, maybe because somebody recognized something in you. And for example, when you were even younger, somebody called out something bad in you. I guess it's really how you build inner leadership, right?
It's one of those ways. It's not the only way. And yeah, I mean, each attribute has its own approach that works, right? For some, it's about intentional opportunity. For some, it's about giving, it's about raising awareness. For some, it's about calling it out. All right. So there are different attributes, and like 47 attributes, you can almost say that there are 47 different ways to build each of these attributes. Yeah. So it's pretty long, pretty a lot of things to try to cover in one episode.
I can't even think of 47 values. Name me like 3. Like, what are some attributes that you've researched on?
Well, the one that many of us are familiar with is growth mindset.
Okay.
Yeah, we hear a lot about it in schools.
Yes.
Other ones that you can mention would be like perseverance, grit, resilience. On the more external side of things, you have like creativity, problem solving. So these are just some of the attributes that we have identified that helps a young person thrive in future.
In the case, like, for this framework of 47 attributes, right? How do you basically use this tool? Or I guess now do you still work in youth development? Not really?
Well, on and off. When Halogen comes me to do like a podcast, teachers training.
Oh, okay. In that case, I guess how would you use this like tool or this framework to kind of guide the way that you're teaching students or I guess interacting with youth?
I think the first thing that would help educators and parents is to realize, okay, there are some things that matter towards a young person's success for the future. All right. Now Halogen decided on 47, but we are not the only ones that have done work on this, right? But I think the important starting point is to realize that there are key fundamentals that we want to put in place in a person's life so that they can withstand hardship, for example, because that's going to be a reality in life, right? It will definitely come. We want to put in place some fundamentals that make them employable, that make them contributing citizens, that make them people who bring value to their communities, to their societies, to their workplaces, right? That's what keeps people employable. And some of these are fundamental, yet universal.
Wow.
Right? Employers are looking out for a very similar set of traits when they are hiring people.
I guess from like a young person's perspective, I don't really see how like my fellow youth or my fellow peers are kind of like looking at inner attributes. I guess we only see outer, right? But I guess like looking at this framework and being able to catch certain things about yourself and knowing how you can develop yourself internally. Okay, not organs internally, but like mentally and emotionally internally. I guess it'd be quite important.
Yeah, and I don't fault young people for not paying attention to it, right? Like the typical young person is engrossed with video games, social media, doom scrolling,
and school,
on TikTok, and even if they are not, right, there are immediate goals that are put in front of them to pursue, right? School has certain goals, CCA has certain goals, and you don't, you chase the goal that is put in front of you, and if someone doesn't help you see the deeper value behind what you're building as you work on those goals, then those teachable moments and those lessons get lost. So I think it's really important for someone to walk you through like, okay, why should you sit down and work on this mathematics problem for an hour? Because it builds grit, it builds resilience, it builds resourcefulness. And these are fundamental yet
and
universal.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah, now we do have a tagline.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Reflecting on like my schooling experience, because I'm still in school, I guess everything that we're given, we only kind of see like what it is, right? And not what it's for. If I do my math homework and I'm like suffering down there and I'm like doing my differentiation.
It's for that A grade.
It's for that A grade, or it's for a good job, right? But I guess in the long term, when you look back at it, it's okay, it was tough times, of course, but I guess it's really about building resilience and grit, like what you said. Or like even just like doing PE, for example. Doing PE breeds teamwork and collaboration, which is something very important for leaders to have as well. Instead of just like focusing on developing yourself, it's interacting with other people, and I guess working on interpersonal management and connecting with other people, because I guess life is not meant to be lived in isolation, right?
Yeah, and since you mentioned PE, right?
PE, yeah.
PE, I hope you learn a new sport, right?
Kind of, yeah.
And I think that's really important, because one of the attributes that we highlighted is learnability, right? Can you learn new things? And knowing, at least knowing when I was 18, I learned how to play badminton. I learned how to play hockey. I learned a new skill. All right. It builds in me the knowledge that I can learn new things. Right. And that's also quite fundamental to growth mindset.
Yeah.
Right. It's about knowing that you have the ability to acquire new skills, new knowledge, and apply them to new situations. But yeah, sometimes, PE lesson is just for fun and games, right? But the really important thing is, before you had that lesson, you couldn't manage a tennis racket for nuts, right?
Correct.
But after that,
suddenly I'm pro athlete.
Maybe not but you have some semblance of being able to have a weekend game with a group of friends.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Learnability is so important. I feel like schools drone on and on about growth mindset, and maybe students listening to this would be like, oh, science, one more growth mindset thing. But I guess it's kind of important in building up your self-esteem also, and in kind of building up your grit. Because when you face a challenge, you don't just sit down there defeated. You think about how you can improve, and whatever hand you're dealt with is not the hand that you leave with, It's like you can learn new skills and you can adapt yourself to be the type of leader that you want to be. And your goal is always achievable if you put in the effort to make yourself, I guess, not more employable, but more universal, and I forgot what's that word, fundamental.
Fundamental.
3 times already. We should have a universal and fundamental counter.
Yeah. So talking about learnability, I thought that's a good place for us to try to wrap up our first episode right now. What do you think, or what do you think are some things you want our audience, our listeners to learn from today's episode?
I guess today's word of the day is influence. Maybe this will be a whole thing. We'll just keep doing word of the days.
Influence.
I guess, yeah, influence. Don't you think it's like quite a nice way to sum up this? Influence in a way where it's, as educators, as mentors, you guys play a role in like shaping a youth's life. You have to influence them to do good. Not like Sean over here. Don't go into the toilet and play chapte, guys. But
that is a form of influence. And in fact, that is something that Halogen teaches, right? That leadership is influence.
Subtle Halogen plug.
And influence can be positive or negative. Yeah.
Okay. And I think secondly, it's about really building resilience, about being open to challenges, no matter what you face. I guess kind of like going there with an open mind. Growth mindset's another keyword of the day. I guess it's 2 words, but
and I hope listeners will also think about how they can be intentional in identifying opportunities to call out these attributes in young people, right? These things, more often than not, don't happen by chance. Right? So if the more intentional we are in building some of these things, right, the higher chances of building these attributes, and the higher chance we have of a thriving society and thriving individuals.
Okay, so we can form a Halogen vocabulary book. Influence, growth mindset, and then now we have...
What was it?
What do you mean now? You just said a keyword.
Huh? What keyword?
Okay, never mind.
Nah,
Listeners will know if they paid attention. Terrible memory. I guess it's the age.
maybe,
Subtle shit.
yeah.
If you found this episode useful, we hope that you recommend it to fellow educators, fellow students, fellow peers.
Yeah, or if you just like my face or her face, yeah, come back for more episodes. And until next time, keep leading inside,
Inside and
out.
out.